să vă fie de folos. Este vorba despre regulile, să spunem așa, în limba engleză atunci când participăm la un interviu, nu, Mihaela? Ceea ce s-ar putea să ni se dea, să ne se adreseze întrebări, ce fel de răspunsuri, probabil cu niște vocabular agreat și de angajatori și sper că după aceea să avem un feedback bun, să ne vedem și săptămâna viitoare la o nouă lecție de business gratuită. Sper să vă fie de folos. O zi frumoasă. Mihaela?
Mulțumesc. Well, bine ai venit, Cătălina, and welcome everybody. Okay, I will speak mostly in English, okay, but I will also translate some words in Romanian as well, especially the ones that are vocabulary specific to interviews. So I will share my screen because I prepared a little presentation. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, good. We have Cristina as well. Okay, so we know when we go for a job interview that we should be punctual, that we should wear nice clothes, depending on the job that you go for as well, that you have to be maybe just a few minutes earlier, not half an hour, and definitely not late. And when you go there and you meet your interviewer, which is the person that is going to conduct the interview and the person that is going to ask questions, there might be more than one, of course, because it depends how many people they have in the hiring committee, în comitetul de angajare, sau persoanele care decid pe cine angajează sau care merge mai departe în procesul de recrutare. So there might be more than one interviewers, more than one people. They will definitely introduce themselves and tell you who they are. Hi, Cristina. Cristina, mă auzi? Not yet. Definitely when you arrive there and you tell your name and you meet the person that greets you at the door, the person that meets you at the door and that will take you to the meeting room, you will wait for them to shake your hands. You will wait for them to reach out to you to shake your hand. You will not be the first one to shake hands because assumingly they are in the strength position, let's say, so that they should be the one to have the initiative. Cristina, mă auzi?
Da, vă aud, bună ziua.
Bună ziua.
Am probleme că nu pot să activez camera pentru Zoom de pe telefon.
Am înțeles. E ok, e bine și așa. Vezi ecranul meu?
Da.
Ok, perfect. Okay, so we were talking a little bit about when you actually get to the interview. So now you're in the meeting room with your interviewer or your interviewers, and you are asked a few general questions. We will only talk about the general part of the interview because there will be also a very specific and detailed part of the interview, but that definitely depends on the job. So we cannot really talk about that unless we have a very real example. So we'll focus on the general part of the interview. And some of the very first questions that you receive are, could you tell us a little about yourself? Could you talk about your education and maybe reasons for leaving the previous job? So we'll quickly talk about each one of them. When you have to talk about yourself, what type of information would you include, Cătălina?
Oh, it's difficult. My last interview was 9 years ago. So I think I will talk about my a little bit about my personal life because it's about myself. So I don't. I'm not thinking discussing about the job, just some personal details, like I'm married. I don't know. My hobbies, let's say, are reading and lately gardening. I have a lot of flowers.
Oh, that's a very nice hobby. Yes. Well, Christina, can you tell us a little bit about the what you would answer to this question? You have to unmute your microphone, by the way. Christina?
Okay. So I will talk about my my job, my profession. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Mm-hmm. About yes, indeed, my personal life, age, family, and so on. No.
Okay, that's very good. The detailed information about your personal life or very personal information is not really that necessary. You don't need to tell them how old you are because they do have your resume and they do have your age or maybe your date of birth. The best thing would be to focus a little bit about your skills, maybe your general skills, the fact that you are a communicative person, that you are a social person, that you really like to work in a team, that you like your job very much if you are going for the same job that you've had previously. Maybe a little bit about your passions as well, but you would start with positive things about yourself. Definitely, you will never include any negative information because you are there to sell yourself rather than to point to whatever is wrong with you. So you will focus on something that is definitely very positive and something that is also a little bit more general. You don't need to go into very personal details unless they ask you, but really at an interview, people shouldn't really ask very general questions, maybe even about your marital status or about your age or your zodiac sign or things. These are very personal things. They should not be included in an interview. But of course, sometimes the interviewers do ask for very personal details. About your education, you would definitely start with the most recent one. Okay, because we have to talk about the most relevant one. Of course, you have to always consider the type of job that you go to, and if your education is relevant to the job that you apply for. Definitely the most recent one, for example, if you have a master's degree, you would start with a master's degree and then maybe talk about university, and that would be pretty much it. If you want to talk about high school, you have to consider whether the high school that you finished is relevant for this position. For example, if you go to a job interview for an accountant position and you graduated from an economic profile high school as accountant or primary accountant, that would be useful, right? Because then that means that you started your career or you started preparing for your career very early in your life. And that means that you are really passionate about your job and you can build on this level of positivity. So you would also include any trainings or courses, but do you think that you can include a training where you don't have a diploma?
No.
You cannot really prove that you had training or that you graduated from that course or from that training. Of course, they would also be listed into your resume, but you would just point them out as the most relevant ones. You will point them out during the interview. Now, the reasons for leaving the previous job or jobs, previous means former, ex job. They could ask not only about your last job, the one that you are trying to leave by coming to this interview, but maybe also the previous ones. This is a very company by company, but you have to be prepared to answer these questions. And you have to be prepared to talk about more than one job. Now, the best thing to say is there are two situations. If you aim for a career change, so let's say that you've been a pharmacist and now you want to become a manager. So you will definitely change positions and you will change roles. That means that you do a career change. So then you can talk about the fact that this is a new step in your life, and if you are trying, you are eager and you are willing to learn whatever is necessary, and you are willing to change your life, and that would be enough to answer this question in this position, in this situation. But what do you do if you go for the same job and you don't change any careers or anything? You're just changing the management team of the previous company and the company. So what would you say then?
Mm.
Do you think you can talk badly about your current job or your previous jobs, or about the management in that company, or about your colleagues? You definitely avoid doing
Definitely
that,
no.
right? Okay. And the best answers would be that you are looking for new opportunities, that you are looking for an opportunity to work in a more dynamic environment, da, într-un mediu de lucru mai dinamic, because that would provide you the opportunity or the option to grow, to learn new things, to better yourself, să te îmbunătățești pe tine, to better yourself. And well, if you talk about developing new skills, that's always a plus. Okay, these are the general questions. So I've also prepared a little bit more specific questions, very little. What makes you suitable for this position? Suitable means able to do the job well and to bring results. În română, întrebarea ar fi ce vă face sau ce te face potrivit sau potrivită pentru această poziție sau pentru acest job. And definitely you have to work on your strength and on your very positive skills, but they have to kind of be specific to the job. Now we cannot talk today about the suitability according to of something very specific to the job, but you definitely can add very general things like experience, drive, eagerness to learn, and to develop further skills. You would start with experience because that's specific to the job, and you can develop this idea into the fact that you've had plenty of experience, that you know how to do your job, that you are able to do your job, and that you have the specific skills that are required for that position. Drive is motivation. You can either use drive or you can use motivation. Motivation or drives and motivație. But that means that you have to play your card like you are a very motivated person. You're a very driven person. You don't expect for someone else or for the company to provide motivation to you, although they should really. But your best role in the interview will be if you say that you are the one that is definitely motivated, and you are motivated by good results, you're motivated by the high standard of your work. And then eagerness to learn means your will to learn new things, you're enthusiastic, and you're very a little impatient to learn new things. Impatient not on the negative side, because impatient has a negative connotation. So we will put a little positive connotation on it, and we will say that I cannot wait to learn new things. That also means that you are always looking to improve yourself. And you can also say that I'm looking to improve myself and to better myself. Vreau să mă îmbunătățesc sau să-mi îmbunătățesc aptitudinile. And to develop further skills. Further skills are the new skills that you will learn in this new company with new people, with a new team, and skills related to the specific job. Further înseamnă mai departe. Further în contextul nostru înseamnă skill-uri noi. Skill-urile din viitor pe care le-ai obține dacă ai lucra în această poziție. Do you have any questions?
What does it mean, eagerness?
Eagerness is enthusiasm.
Okay.
Ok, în română ar fi puțin, nu faptul că ești nerăbdătoare dar și asta, că îți dorești foarte mult să înveți, că ești nerăbdătoare să înveți foarte multe lucruri, dar nu nerăbdătoare cu un iz așa ușor negativ, ci foarte pozitiv.
Ok, thank you.
Ok, good. Next, what are your strengths? This is a very common question, very present, and of course the opposite of it. Strengths are your qualities that make you a valuable employee. So, în română, puncte forte. Dar întrebarea, care sunt punctele dumneavoastră forte sau care sunt punctele tale forte, dacă există, dacă vă tutuiți la interviu. And you definitely have to play the most important ones. You cannot make a very long list full of qualities and strengths. So let's see, maybe 3 that you would include. Of course, there are the skills that are very specific to jobs, to the role that you interview for. So you can definitely start with those. But now if we talk about general ones, we can talk about attention to details, motivation, which you mentioned we mentioned earlier as well, and that you are a results-oriented person. Attention to details, it means definitely that you look very, very in detail. And that's important if, for example, you do online content at a job, or that if you are in administration, or even if you work as an accountant, definitely you need attention to detail there, or in any financial position. Or maybe even as a pharmacist, if you work as a pharmacist, you have to pay very close attention to what you do, to the type of, to the prescription that you receive from your client, to the client as well. Maybe you have to input data. So the data that you have to input into a computer or in a soft program, it has to be definitely 100% correct. And then motivation, which is a quite useful one, because you have to show that you are motivated to work by yourself, and you don't need external stimuli to do that. You don't need someone else to motivate you. You are definitely motivated. And results-oriented person, what do you think it means?
I think it means that you have a focus, you have something in focus, and you are very determined to fulfill that purpose.
Yes, definitely. So your work is always having in mind the result that you work towards. So you work toward a certain purpose, a certain result, and you focus on the bigger perspective, not necessarily on how to do the task, but what the task is useful for and why you have it, and that you have it with a certain purpose. Maybe a short-term purpose, but the short-term purpose of that task goes to the next task, and the short term of the next task, and so on, and then you build towards a certain goal. And you know that everything that I'm doing has a certain result, and I know that, and I am aware of that, and I work precisely for that. So that's a very important one. And actually, in job ads, companies do include motivation and to be a results-oriented person, because these are valuable traits that an employee should have. Okay, good. And then, of course, you will talk about something very specific to the job. If you're a very organized person, if the job definitely requires someone to be very, very organized. If you are very communicative, if you have to work with clients, you have to be very communicative and very social and sociable, so that you get along with your clients, maybe even less conflictual, okay, so that you don't stir up conflicts with your colleagues or with clients or with your teammates. Okay, so there are other things that you can include as well. Now, the opposite of strengths is weaknesses, right? Which will be areas that you can improve. You will never talk about your flaws. Nu vorbești despre defecte, ci despre slăbiciune și punct slab, dar întotdeauna vei puncta pe faptul că aceste arii, aceste puncte slabe sunt lucruri asupra cărora lucrezi să le îmbunătățești. So when you start answering this question, you will say, well, I think that my weaknesses, the areas that I can improve are, and then you list 2 or 3 of them. You don't talk too much about your weaknesses, because you cannot, again, if you have a full list of strengths, you shouldn't really have a full list of weaknesses as well. Although most of the employers ask for 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses, so then you have to be prepared with a couple of them or a number of them. Okay, definitely, again, your card here is, the card that you play is the fact that you work to improve these weaknesses, because the next question might be, what do you do in order to overcome these weaknesses? Overcome înseamnă a lucra ca să depășești anumite lucruri, a depăși anumite puncte slabe sau slăbiciuni. So you have to pay very close attention to the weaknesses that you include, because you might have to answer the question of what do you do in order to improve them. And I've selected 3 of them, and I will tell you what they mean. If you say that I'm overly critical with myself, what it means is that I hold my work in high standards, or you can actually omit the word overly. Overly înseamnă prea mult, sunt prea critic cu mine însămi sau cu mine însumi, dacă e persoană de sex masculin. Putem omite cuvântul overly ca să nu fie prea mult, pentru că ar putea să devină un defect și mai mult decât o slăbiciune. And say, well, I'm critic with myself, or I'm really critical with myself, which means that I really value my work and I have my work in some standards. I want to keep it at a certain standard. One that is a little bit, well, it's useful to have because it's really easy that I try to get along with everybody, which means that I'm sociable and likable. And maybe also the fact that I don't like to stir up conflict. To stir up înseamnă să creez conflict. Da? Deci, o persoană care este sociabilă și drăguță și care încearcă să se înțeleagă cu ceilalți colegi, este clar o persoană care încearcă să evite conflictele sau nu le evită din lașitate, le evită pentru că nu sunt productive. Și se poate puncta acest lucru. I want to avoid, or I try to avoid conflict because I don't believe that they are productive. Not that I'm a coward, but they're not productive in a work environment. We should not spend our time fighting. We should spend our time working together and resolving issues. Now, the third one that is, it has, in the last period of time, in the last few years, it has got a very bad reputation when people say that they're perfectionists. Some people use it as a strength, but now recruiters have went to the other side. Well, when they don't think that's a strength anymore, but they might not really like it as a weakness as well. I included it because it's very used by candidates. And it might also be very looked at by employers as well. A perfectionist as a weakness is a type of person that spends a lot of time to finish something, sometimes too much time to finish something. So if you spend a lot of time doing a simple task or maybe finishing a project, you will not finish it on time, so you might miss the deadline. Deadline înseamnă termenul limită al unui task sau al unui proiect întreg. If you miss the deadline, dacă ratezi termenul limită, then we kind of have a problem with the fact that you cannot decide that your work is good in order to submit it or in order to finish it. So that actually means that if you are so critical with yourself that you become a perfectionist, you will never finish the job. Okay, so then the best thing to say when you say about yourself that you're a perfectionist is that you take extra time to review a task or to review the result of a project or a project. Do you have any questions?
No, but I think it's really useful. This presentation, it really is very, very useful. And
I'm happy that you find it that way.
Yes. And I'm a perfectionist person, and that's why I'm struggling with a training for 1 week because I don't. I can help myself to put a lot of slides, and then I realized that it's too much information, but then I have to decide which slide to delete, and it's very difficult because it's in that slide is important, but also that the other slide is also important. So this presentation is for my personal developing, and it's exactly what I have in this moment. What I need, sorry, exactly what I need in this moment.
All right. It's really, really difficult to know how to restrict information, but that you have the same level of data that you provide, that you basically say it in a less format, but you say a lot with that little format. It's really difficult to understand how to do that. But then maybe you should have a very objective opinion of someone else, and then before you actually do your presentation at the training unit.
Yes, because it's a common presentation, and at the end I will discuss with my colleague, and I'll show her the presentation, and we will decide what to keep and what not to keep in the presentation.
Okay.
But I'm a perfectionist, and I want to be to have more information, to have a lot of details and.
No, well, it's good that you work with a colleague, because 4 eyes is better than 2 eyes always. Okay, good. Well, the next one we will talk a little bit about what these things mean. When you are told that you have to have initiative, or that you have to be proactive, and that you have to be result or goal oriented, what do you understand by that? What do they mean when they say that? Okay, well, to have initiative means to be able to act on your own initiative, to be comfortable making proposals, or to be comfortable or confident to take matters into your own hands, to act by yourself, meaning that you don't necessarily, not that you don't need guidance from your supervisor or from your leader, but you definitely have initiative. În română, a avea inițiativă, and the opposite of it is to lack initiative, a nu avea inițiativă. Okay, a lack of înseamnă lipsă de. So to lack initiative înseamnă că există o lipsă de inițiativă. Okay, for example, situation when you would need to have initiative might be when there is a little problem in your department, maybe, and you have the ability to resolve it, maybe. So you are the one that takes the initiative to resolve the situation rather than waiting for your leader to do it, although your leader would definitely be the one that could do it or maybe should do it. But if you have the power to do that, that would be great. It also works a little bit, the example that I gave works a little bit with the next one, to be proactive, which means to take control of a situation and not wait for it to happen and then to react to what has happened. A fi proactiv, și în română, which means to take charge, adică a lua frâiele. And opposite would be to be passive or to be reactive, meaning that you react to the results of a situation rather than trying to control it or trying to solve it in the middle of the situation, right? While it's happening. So you don't wait for everything to get damaged and then do damage control. You kind of do the damage control while the situation is uncovering. Damage control înseamnă controlul daunelor, right? Which means that if something really bad happens, you try to see what you have to do in order to make it less worrying or less bad or less damaged. So that's proactive, which definitely comes from being active, and pro as a benefit, as an advantage, as something plus. And then the last one, to be results oriented. We talked a little bit about it earlier, meaning to have your eye on the end result of your actions and your project, and to work towards a goal, that your actions definitely go towards a goal. And the similar expression is goal oriented. So you will find it results oriented or goal oriented. Now, in a larger project, you might find it as goal-oriented because, well, a project generally has one goal, which is comprised out of different little goals. And now you will maybe find it as result-oriented in jobs that don't require specifically one goal or a project, but you have different tasks or different responsibilities, and each one of them has a result or should have a result, and your job is how to get to the result, not exactly how to do the job. There is a slight difference between being results oriented and method oriented. Method oriented would mean how do I do my job, not why do I do my job. Okay, well, a person needs to be both a little bit. but there are companies who are looking for more results-oriented person, because that person will definitely have results. Okay, well, then this is the end of our presentation. So this is what you would definitely get at a job interview on the spectrum of the general questions. And along with these questions are generally asked at the beginning of the interview, because you have to get to know each other, and you have to, they want to make the transition a little bit earlier into something very, very specific to the job. And if the job is something very technical, then you will definitely have a very technical question. If it's not really that technical, but there are very specific things, you have to know from the beginning, before you go to the interview, which are those specific things that they might ask for. And you have to always have questions prepared. Now, because they're specific to your job, and if you have a lot of experience in your job, you might be able to answer right then and there. But if you have to have an interview in English, and you are not 100% confident in your English, your ability to speak English, then you should write down even the very specific, even the things that you know very well, very, very well. You should write them down and read them a couple of times before you go to the interview. And with the general ones, if you find this vocabulary and you include this vocabulary in your answer, you prove that, first of all, you've prepared for the interview, which is a definite plus. That you go there and you have no idea what to talk about, then you spend 3 minutes thinking about an answer. And then also that you have the vocabulary, you have the language to talk. I have the language to talk about myself. I have the vocabulary necessary to explain to you what type of an employee I am to be. So definitely prepare at the beginning. Do you have any questions?
No.
No.
Okay, well, thank you for joining me today. We'll talk more in the future about interviews and applying to jobs and sending your candidature to different positions. And of course, if you find it useful, then I will wait for you at our next class.
Next class will be at the same hour.
Yes, we generally have a business English at about 2 p.m. Romania time on Mondays.
Okay, because next Monday definitely I can attend.
Can or cannot?
No, I cannot. I cannot
Okay.
attend.
I understand.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe in the future I will follow on LinkedIn and
Yes, on Facebook, the Facebook page, yes, where we publish the schedule for the following week. So at the end of 1 week, we publish the schedule for the next week. So you will know when the business English is going to be on Monday, on the next Monday. Okay, and then we will wait for you, definitely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Bye-bye.